The Threxian Empire, proud sovereigns of 89 systems, had long regarded themselves as unshakable. Their fleets stretched across quadrants, their archives pulsed with thousands of species logged, dissected, and categorized. Order was their doctrine, knowledge, their claim to dominance. So when a Terran diplomatic convoy entered the Kaldor Verge, an offshoot of Threxian claimed territory, they acted swiftly. The ship bore no shields, no weapons. Its signal registered as civilian class, flagged under the Peace Ambassadorship Program, an interspecies educational initiative. Its passengers, 14 human children, ages range from 8 to 12, selected from various colonies, trained in first contact etiquette, linguistics, cultural navigation. They carried with them plush toys, language tablets, and handwritten notes for their alien hosts. The Threxians, unfamiliar with human developmental biology, were puzzled. Their scans read full neural patterning, heightened hormonal activity, and strangely variable emotional fields. But the bodies? Small. Software underdeveloped. Conclusion: genetic experiments, outliers, test models. They hailed Earth. Specimens secured, awaiting analysis. They believed it was a gesture of respect, an announcement of procedural detainment. They expected acknowledgement, perhaps gratitude. Instead, they received silence. Then 13 minutes later, something changed. The stars around Sol dimmed, not visibly, not to the naked eye, but through spectral distortion, energy folding, telemetry warping. Long-range scans flatlined. Border sensors along the verge flickered. Threxian astronomers checked their arrays, recalibrated, ran diagnostics. One whispered, "It's not failing, it's receding." Across 8 sectors, whispers began. Rumors that Sol had gone. Quiet, but not empty, not still. Silent the way a held breath is silent. Held, waiting. The Empire dispatched a diplomatic corvette to the Terran Ministry of Peace. It never arrived. Instead, the Threxian High Command received a return signal, unmarked, unencrypted, audio only. A child's voice, one of the missing 14. She said, "My name is Lila. I'm 8. I like stars and drawing and hugs. I don't know where we are, but I remember what they told us. If anything bad ever happens, we don't panic. We wait, because home always hears." Pause, she took a breath. And home doesn't like it when someone forgets we're still children. End transmission, no threats, no declarations, just that voice, calm, innocent, devastating. Threxian Command called for a security lockdown. Too late, because across the galaxy, Terran colonies were going dark, not from power failure, from intention. Shields raised, ports closed, signals ceased. One phrase began circulating, on pirate channels, on backwater broadcasts, even in forgotten corners of ancient networks. 3 words, simple, final. That was enough. There was no rallying cry, no press release, no open declaration. Earth simply stopped speaking. Within hours of the Threxian transmission, specimens secured, awaiting analysis. Every Terran embassy across the outer reach dimmed its lights and sealed its doors. Peace envoys stepped off neutral stations, leaving their seats empty in negotiation chambers that had remained occupied for centuries. The Terran Peace Concord, Earth's celebrated diplomatic fleet, began a silent recall. Vessels turned without comment. Beacons blinked goodbye in sequences. Ancient empires didn't even recognize as code. The Unity Council, dormant, symbolic, little more than myth to many, summoned itself. For the first time in over 3,000 years, all 12 chairs were filled. The original chamber on Luna's dark side, long maintained by tradition and dust, flickered to life. Atmospheric pressure stabilized. Gravity was restored. Lights rose. They didn't argue. They didn't deliberate. They voted, unanimously. Protocol redline. It had only one function: remember who we used to be. Within 90 seconds of activation, every human-aligned AI core across the charted galaxy ceased its present tasks. Medical subnets froze mid-surgery. Agricultural systems paused growth cycles. Even leisure simulators halted in the middle of recorded dreams. One by one, they opened vaults. Vaults built before peace, before unity, back when Earth was still fractured, still bleeding, still afraid of itself. Blueprints older than the empire that had just made a mistake began surfacing, not all at once, with purpose. AI mainframes, decrypted protocols handwritten by dead engineers, subroutines written in extinct languages, combat designs no longer considered ethical, stored under cognitive lock. They remembered them all. Orbital forges across Martian rings shifted alignment. Gas harvesters on Neptune's moons rerouted energy. Dormant bunkers under Europa lit up with fusion cores that had been silent since before the Silence Wars. No one broadcast a message. No comms were opened. No threats were made. But space began to change. Every shipyard hidden under oceans, buried beneath ice, orbiting forgotten suns, activated. Titan-class vessels, once dismantled for being too symbolic of old violence, were sketched anew in code. Fabricators worked in silence. Stars reflected metal. It took less than 12 hours. 3 millennia of weapon advancement. All remembered, all recompiled. The Terrans didn't brag. They didn't perform. They didn't rage. They simply began to prepare. The Threxian Empire, still unaware of the depth of its error, attempted to follow standard protocol. A transmission was sent to Earth. It offered clarification, then caution, then demand. Each message returned the same automated signal. Terran bandwidth not accepting communications. By the 13th hour, the first disappearance occurred. A Threxian research barge orbiting the E-class moon, Veltar 9, winked out. No explosion, no debris, just silence. An echo of the stillness Earth had chosen. The Unity Council didn't issue claims. They only watched. Earth's population was not conscripted. There was no draft. Instead, citizens turned off their music, paused their games, and walked outside. They looked up, and they waited. The colonies followed. On Mars, students laid down their pens and helped clear the old launch rails. On Europa, scientists activated grav lifts buried beneath the frozen oceans. On Luna, children asked why the stars felt different tonight. Parents didn't have answers, just tears. And a word passed from mouth to mouth, heart to heart, screen to screen. A name: Ava, Lila, Sanjay, Rua, Jordan. Children. Names given in whisper, now remembered in thunder. Back in deep space, Terran-aligned merchant fleets began receiving new routes. They didn't question. They rerouted silently. Across old neutral zones, forgotten listening posts picked up rhythmic pulses. Binary, ancient, efficient. One message only. Remember what was promised. Among the outer colonies, old war-forged species stirred. The Doran, once saved by Terran medics during the Black Star collapse, lit 100 suns in ritual tribute. The Kryell, long since ascended to machine mind abstraction, sent 2 words down the quantum stream. Awaiting activation. One by one, the galaxy's margins began to hum, not with war cries, but with memory. The kind of memory that doesn't fade. The kind of pain that becomes preparation. Earth had taught peace for 3,000 years, but it had never forgotten the shape of fury. The Unity Council issued its final order of the day. No announcement, just a command. Let the stars witness who we are when our children cry. And the stars, they listened, because Earth no longer asked for permission. It never had. It simply remembered, and remembering was enough. The Threxian High Command reviewed the latest intel with a collective sneer. Across a curved war table spanning 6 kilometers, admirals, scientists, and socio-psychological analysts sat draped in gold-threaded garments, their pride as heavy as their armor. Reports flickered across the display, visuals from a stealth probe stationed near Saturn. Terran shipyards, once museums of old war machines, were alive again. Massive orbital rings, long dormant, hummed with blue-white light. The moon lattice, a vast network of reactors, beam forges, and gravity welders embedded into Luna's crust, now pulsed like a heartbeat. Threxian strategists scrolled through the data. Posturing, declared General Vishtan. Rehearsal theater. Another leaned forward, curling a digit around a goblet of blood fruit wine. Primitive cultural response. They perform rage to mask fear. Their shipyards were decommissioned centuries ago, noted the tech minister. Reactivation cycles alone suggest inefficiency. A chuckle spread across the table. Their pride tasted like certainty, yet no one noticed how quiet the border systems had become. The children, meanwhile, remained secured. 14 small figures, different sizes, different origins, all human, still breathing, still fed, still being watched. In containment halls lined with clinical silence, Threxian biologists and neurobehaviorists argued about hormonal flux ratios and speech anomalies. They cry easily, one said. That's emotional instability. They play together despite trauma, another countered. Pack resilience, dangerous if harnessed. They filed their reports, sent them up the chain. Conclusions, undetermined but promising. Potential for manipulation, high. A message was dispatched to Earth. Your concerns have been acknowledged. The subjects are safe. Evaluation will continue. Results will be shared once complete. The message was sent through 3 encoded channels. Every comm node confirmed receipt, but no reply ever came. Instead, something stranger. All human embassies, from the core worlds to the dust rings, went dark. No farewell, no shutdown sequence, just silence. Vessels from neutral parties approached the Terran diplomatic compound on Caltris Prime. They found doors sealed in quantum locks, symbols etched into the walls. One phrase repeated across every embassy. When they forget what peace costs, remind them why it was bought. Markets shifted, trade slowed, then collapsed. Terran currencies vanished from the exchange nets. Coalitions that relied on Earth's logistical frameworks, medical shipments, AI calibrations, terraforming stabilizers, began failing. Shipping lanes once stabilized by Terran logistics now drifted into piracy. The ripple spread faster than anyone predicted. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when space folded, and then ripped, not near Earth, but around it. Threxian observers stationed along the Vontu spine recorded the event. An impossible anomaly, space-time bending inwards, refusing to snap back. And from that tier, the first of many, emerged a vessel unlike any on record. It bore no nameplate, no registry. Its shape defied dimension. Symmetrical but wrong. Fluid metal, folded geometry, hull markings in languages older than sound. Its wake bent comm signals. It glided past known beacons without triggering alarms. Threxian Fleet Command was notified. They reviewed the footage, laughed again. A prototype, someone scoffed. A distraction, another bluff. They called it posturing. Even as 27 more vessels exited similar tiers across the galactic rim. Even as warp relays failed. Even as communications with border stations ceased mid-sentence. Still, the Empire debated. Still, they measured, modeled, and dismissed. The children remained alive. The Empire believed that meant safety. They didn't understand what Earth had become. Not yet. Because Earth had never screamed, never threatened, never begged. It simply remembered. And now it moved, not with fire, not with fear, but with memory sharpened into motion. In the center of every command ship, every flagship simulator, every high-tier analytics suite, a Terran phrase began appearing in corrupted reflections. Water, glass, screen static. 3 words, spoken by no mouth, heard by every being. We remember her. Threxian High Command filed it as a memetic leak. Nothing more. Just a glitch. Until one of their own analysts stood mid-briefing and whispered, "She's not afraid anymore." Then clawed out his own voice box and smiled. A Threxian picket fleet hung in orbit near Milla's Crescent, a fragile loop of gas and rock spiraling through Sector 19. The fleet was standard, 9 war cruisers, 17 support frigates, 2 command carriers. Efficient, predictable, invincible by Threxian standards. Then came the signal. "One inbound," said the sensor officer, a low-caste enforcer bred for calm. "One vessel," scoffed Captain Krenvok. "That's all." The sensor officer's spines twitched. "Sir, The signature is unknown. No drive shape, no heat wake. It's not classifiable. The ship arrived not through traditional spacefold or slipstream. It appeared, simply appeared, folding into being like a memory returning. Shape, wrong. Size, unknowable. Color, shifting between starlight and shadow. The Threxians scrambled. Targeting arrays locked. Shields raised. Threat assessments spun. Then everything went dark. Not visually, not auditorily. Systems still hummed. But deeper systems, the cognitive cores, the targeting libraries, the generational war routines, flashed red, then blank. An EMP had struck. Not a wide-field blast, not a scatter wave. A targeted conscious burst aimed precisely at one layer of memory. The part that remembered how to fire. Threxian officers reached for weapons and forgot how they worked. AI turrets blinked. Calculations halted midline. Tactical networks still displayed real-time feeds. Visuals were intact, but the instinct to act was gone. Then came the breach. Human Marines appeared aboard every ship in the fleet within 30 seconds. No weapons drawn, no threats issued. They moved as shadows with mass. Echoes of something the Threxians had forgotten how to resist. The Marines didn't kill. They walked past frozen soldiers. They reached the lower brig of Command Carrier 3. There they found the children, all 14, unharmed, huddled in a circle, one singing softly to the others. It was a lullaby, Terran origin, old from Earth's cradle. The human commander knelt beside the children. Ready to go home? They nodded, and then they left. No shot fired, no ship damaged. Threxian officers collapsed to their knees, memories broken not by pain, but by absence. They wept and begged, not for victory, for forgiveness. Aboard every comnet, every secure channel, and every public broadcast node across the region, Earth sent one message, plain, unfiltered, translated automatically into every known language. Children are never fair targets. Peace is now revoked. Across 5 sectors, governments called emergency sessions. Empires convened crisis chambers, not to prepare for war, but to beg for pause. Because Earth had spoken, not in fury, not in rage, in absolute surgical intent. The Galactic Council, an ancient seat of interstellar law and diplomacy, calls an emergency convocation. The chamber orbits the twin suns of Lyrillon Prime, shimmering with ceremonial grav rings and embassies older than most living species. It has weathered genocides, peace accords, and empire births, but today it trembles. Representatives from over 400 civilizations take their seats. News feeds from across the stars echo one question: what will Earth do next? The Threxian representative, draped in war cloth, still damp from ceremony, opens his mouth to speak. But the chamber dims, not from failure, from protocol override. A projection appears at the center of the council floor. Not a warlord, not a diplomat, not a general, a child. One of the 14, brown skin, big eyes, no more than 9 standard years old. She speaks slowly, voice uncertain. They called us cargo. I heard them say it. Nothing more. The projection ends. No anthem, no flag, no Earth insignia, just silence, and then fear. Across the chamber, diplomats whisper. Screens light up with cross-sector updates. Entire species who had once dismissed humanity's softness and emotional volatility begin reassessing ancient treaties and classified dossiers. Earth isn't issuing demands. They're just moving, silently, precisely. Human fleets begin reconfiguring from trade routes to gravitational staging arcs. No broadcasts, no declarations. But war isn't declared. It is unfolding. Threxian shipyards in Silex Quadrant blink offline. Initial reports say communications lost. Updated reports, no communications left to lose. Satellites pick up fragments of light, not from explosions, but from stellar ignitions. Shipyards go nova. Controlled fusion breaches, timed collapses, no trace of kinetic weaponry. Threxian admirals panic. They reach for their fleets. They find only echoes. Entire wings of vessels fold into slip space, never to arrive. Earth, it seems, has mapped where war would be born and aborted it in the womb. A few empires attempt to offer aid to the Threxians. Their convoys are intercepted, not destroyed, redirected. Earth's vessels do not fire unless fired upon, but they never miss when provoked. And their shields don't flicker. They shimmer like event horizons, absorbing weapons, data, and even light. In the following days, three minor powers submit full formal apologies to Earth for past unkind words regarding Terran softness. One species, the Truvex, offers reparations despite never having engaged with Earth at all. Their ambassador simply says, "We've seen the lullabies." At the Galactic Court, some council members try to spin narratives of misunderstanding. They were just children. Others respond, "That's the point." Because for the first time in recorded cosmic law, an entire civilization is facing judgment not for what it did to warriors, but for what it did to the innocent. The Threxian Empire scrambles to rebrand the incident. They call it a rogue act, an unauthorized detainment, but the data is irrefutable. Recordings, transcripts, surveillance logs. The label specimen is used 37 times in official communications. Each use is now a coffin. The Galactic Court never delivers a verdict. Because Earth never asked for one, it didn't need to. The verdict was carried out cleanly, efficiently, without fanfare. On the seventh day after the retrieval of the children, every known Threxian research station involved in the incident simply ceases, not explodes, not collapses, ceases. Monitors flicker, static hums, and then a black screen. Autopsies of recovered AIs show something impossible. Code overwritten by what appears to be a child's handwriting. One line repeated endlessly, "We are not yours." The court chamber empties slowly. No conclusions are drawn, no punishments decreed, no alliance shifts confirmed, because all across the galaxy, a new doctrine has taken hold, one never spoken aloud, but written now into the hearts of diplomats and warriors alike. Do not harm Earth's young, because Earth remembers, and Earth does not forgive with words. It forgives, or it doesn't, with silence, precision, and the unmaking of threats before they're even spoken. Human fleets do not announce themselves. They arrive in silence, but that silence is not empty. Across subspace, through radiation spectra, in old comm channels long considered obsolete, they sing, not in voices, in pattern, in pulse. A rhythmic thrum built from old Terran chants, deep, resonant, encoded in radiation frequencies that bypass translation filters. The sounds pass through shields, through bones, through memory. To the galaxy, it's music. To those who understand Earth, it is a warning. To the Threxians, it is the beginning of the end. One Threxian general, worn from 7 sleepless rotations, broadcasts a desperate plea. Why? Why not speak? Why not parlay? Why chance? An answer arrives, not from a human, but from one of Earth's oldest artificial minds. It identifies as Cassandra 9, a diplomatic AI decommissioned centuries ago. Now reawakened, her voice is smooth, kind, irrevocable. You touched what we protect. There is no coming back from that. Then Earth begins its justice, not with fire, but with unmaking. Entire Threxian cities, not bombed, not razed, vanish. No explosions, no fallout. Just a moment of soft silence, and then the land is flat. Structural collapse? None. Civilian deaths? Zero. Yet every facility involved in warfare, trafficking, or propaganda? Gone. The method is unclear. Some say molecular destabilization. Others suggest quantum transfer to null space. But survivors, those who watched from nearby provinces, say the same thing. The buildings folded inward, like they remembered they weren't supposed to exist. It is not vengeance. It is not cruelty. It is correction. For every child harmed, an empire limb is severed. A military dockyard disappears because a boy was mocked in a cage. A capital war archive goes silent because a girl cried and no one listened. By the end of the second Terran day, the Threxian Empire has lost 78% of its wartime infrastructure. And yet, not a single shot has landed on a school, not one hospital scratched, not one refugee disturbed. Earth isn't trying to win a war, it's demonstrating. Elsewhere in the galaxy, ancient powers once aligned with the Threxians begin retracting pacts, not because they fear retaliation, but because they realize something deeper. Peace was not Earth's weakness. It was their mercy, the treaties, the quiet diplomacy, the decades of restraint. It was never fear that kept humanity still. It was choice. And now that choice had been taken from them. And what rose in its place was older than law, older than logic. Justice. The chants continue. Ships glide between stars not like predators but like judges. Their hulls bear no markings, no slogans, no names. Just the Terran emblem. Simplified, a child's hand held by an adult's. The symbol beams across satellites and fractured convoys. Interpretations vary. Analysts debate intent. But the people understand, and the message becomes legend. They never cared about conquest, only protection. Aboard one Terran dreadnought, a recovered Threxian officer is treated for shock. He asks a human medic, "How did you find us?" The medic doesn't look up. She simply answers, "We didn't need to. You touch the fire. The fire comes on its own." Across neutral sectors, alien broadcasters whisper of Earth's return, not to empire, not to dominance, but to identity. They are not conquerors. They are not tyrants. They are the species that remembers what pain felt like as children and vowed never to let anyone suffer it again. And when that promise is broken, the galaxy burns with precision. The flames that consumed the Threxian war machine did not die down. They changed direction, not toward Earth, but inward. Inside the heart of the Threxian Empire, in cities untouched by Terran justice, unrest bloomed like wildfire across cracked marble streets and shimmering spire capitals. It was not rebellion, not quite. It was reckoning. Families who once cheered military parades now covered their windows in silence. Teachers rewrote lessons mid-cycle. Mothers whispered stories of human fleets that dismantled planets without hate, without noise, without even showing their faces. They called it the reckoning of mercy, and it terrified them more than any war they'd ever known. For the first time in recorded Threxian history, soldiers laid down their arms not in defeat, but in shame. High-ranking generals refused deployment orders. Logistics hubs misfiled munitions intentionally. AI subroutines designed for precision targeting suddenly began broadcasting lullabies, as if haunted. Some said it was Earth's influence. Others said it was guilt learning how to code itself. In the outer provinces, marches began, not protests. Quiet processions. Threxians walked with heads bowed, some carrying crude drawings of Terran children. The phrase scrawled on walls in red, "They came because we stopped seeing children as children." The Unity Council, Earth's highest interstellar authority, did not gloat. They did not broadcast threats. They simply received thousands of surrender transmissions, hundreds of asylum requests, even diplomatic envoys from species who once cursed humanity as too emotional to survive galactic scale. Those same species now begged for Earth's forgiveness, but Earth didn't answer. Instead, their command post posted a single doctrine: no species who disregards the innocence of children may remain sovereign. The words weren't law, but they became standard. Fleets realigned, treaties were rewritten overnight. The Galactic Trade Axis passed emergency provisions to screen every alliance based on treatment of juvenile sentience. Former enemies of Earth began patrolling their own sectors, not for threats, but for violations of that single creed. Not because Earth demanded it, because they couldn't bear what would come if Earth had to step in again. Then came the moment, a confrontation centuries in the making. On Threx Prime, capital of the once mighty empire, Earth didn't attack. They arrived. A single carrier-class vessel entered orbit. No weapons powered, no soldiers deployed, just one signal, repeated calmly on every frequency, every channel, every neural link. Then a second signal, live streamed across Threx Prime's atmosphere. The children, The 14 taken, now safe, seated together, faces calm, not angry. One, the smallest, a boy named Kale, spoke. "You hurt us. You scared us. But we came back to show you something." Another, Maya, older, wiser in her eyes now, leaned forward. "We don't hate you. We just needed you to stop." The broadcast ended, but it didn't vanish. It repeated, looping gently every hour on the hour. Cities wept. So did soldiers. The Threxian emperor, a relic of conquest, stepped down without a word. Statues were pulled down, not toppled, removed, hands trembling, claws shaking, and in their place new monuments rose, not to earth, to childhood, to the memory of what happens when mercy is mistaken for weakness. Earth's fleets left orbit the next day. No territory claimed, no victory speech given, no flags planted, just a galaxy forever changed, because a line had been crossed, and those who crossed it heard the echo. The Threxian Empire didn't fall all at once. It folded, like paper soaked in time. It collapsed in on itself, quietly, shamefully, not with explosions or rebellion, but with removal. Ministers resigned mid-sentence. Fleet commanders left their posts and never returned. Entire systems began to redact their loyalty before any Terran vessel ever appeared. Because Earth didn't need to finish the war. Memory did that for them. The final nail came not from orbit, nor policy, nor planetary strike. It came from the New World Protocol. Earth authored it in silence. It passed through the Galactic Council with unanimous votes. Even from species that once rallied against Terran presence, its core clause was brief. No sentient juvenile of any race shall be seized, held, studied, or politicized. Violation results in immediate probation under Terran supervision. Enforcement is not optional. It is precedent. There were no protests. None dared challenge the planet that had shown what peace could become when shattered. Earth didn't conquer. They simply held a mirror, and the galaxy flinched at what stared back. The monument came later, built not on Earth, but upon the scorched remains of Threx Prime's capital. The structure rose from the ruins, not sleek or polished, but raw, carved from local stone, infused with Terran alloys that hummed softly at night. It took 14 days to build, 1 day for each child. No fanfare, no opening ceremony, just a quiet unveiling. And the inscription. "We were quiet for 3,000 years. That was our peace. This was our reply." And beneath that, etched in every galactic dialect, "Do not test what was built to endure. Do not touch what was born to grow." Across star systems, the shift was immediate. Diplomatic channels changed protocols. Treaty language began including youth protections. Academies taught new conflict de-escalation patterns built from Earth's silent methods. But the greatest shift was cultural. In classrooms across thousands of worlds, a new lesson entered the curriculum. Never provoke a species that trains peace like a sword in a sheath. Children learned of Earth not through terror, but through restraint. The story they were told was not of vengeance, or victory, or might. It was of response, measured, ethical, implacable. A tale of a civilization that held itself back until it couldn't. And even then, it left room for the guilty to understand. Kyle, one of the 14, returned to Earth and never gave interviews. He tended gardens, taught poetry to other orphans of war. When asked what happened out there, he would only say, "They forgot we were kids. That was their last mistake." Maya, now an ambassador, walked past the monument on Threx Prime every year. She placed a drawing each time, one she'd made during captivity. It showed the galaxy as a hand, and in the center, a flower. She never explained it. She didn't need to. The Terran military remained silent. Their fleet stood down, not retired, simply waiting. New recruits were told not of war campaigns, but of boundaries, of what must never happen again. Veterans of the child rescue mission wore no medals. Instead, they carried a single phrase engraved on the inner side of their comm cuffs. "Hold the line, especially for them." The galaxy moved on, but not untouched. For the first time in recorded stellar history, an entire quadrant reorganized itself around a moral axis. Not because Earth demanded it, but because Earth had proved what would happen if it ever had to remind them again. Some still speak of the stars burning differently now, as if their hum shifted. Quieter, not in fear, but in respect. Because somewhere out there, the species that once sang lullabies and grew wheat in silence had been forced to raise its voice. And when it did, the galaxy listened and learned.